Hey you guys, what's up? I'm Ashley from heavenathome.org, and this is the Heaven at Home podcast, where my goal is to encourage you in your personal growth journey while being open, honest, and owning my story. We have faith-based conversations and tackle a bunch of different tough topics. Check out the description to follow me and learn more. Remember, you are fully known and deeply loved. Let's do this. Hey everybody, so I'm here with my friend Toni. We used to worship together at one of my favorite churches here in the Charlotte area. And before we get started, Toni, I was wondering if you could just tell everyone a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Toni Granados, and I am a local real estate agent in the area of Charlotte and surrounding. Before that, I was a nurse for 20 years, and I have been married now for going on 25 years next year. Woohoo! And
Quarter of a century.
Yes, I know. Quarter of a century is a big deal, so I want a big celebration. And then I have 3 children.
Cool. So I don't know if you know this, but I've actually been wanting to interview you about this topic for a really long time. One of my first interviews was actually with someone who kind of had like a miscarriage around the time that they were trying and stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
So I know a bit about your story, but I was wondering if you could just start from the beginning. Like, did you know that infertility was going to be a struggle, or just that whole thing?
No. And it's really interesting because the other day I was telling the story to someone, and it gave me kind of even a newer perspective. But when you try to do everything the way you're supposed to, you think it's just going to work, right?
Yeah.
Well, it still all depends on God. Everything always depends on God. And so I learned that in the process and just thinking on that the other day. But I got married really young. I was 19, 2 weeks from turning 19 when I got married.
Oh, wow.
So really young. I took birth control for like the first, I would say, 9 months of my relationship. And then we were like, he was working steady, I was working, I finished school. And I said, okay, well, let's try to have a baby because I want to have him young. I don't want to be old while my kids are still graduating college or high school. And boy, did that change. Anyway, so we end up starting to try at about a year, actively trying to get pregnant. Nothing happened. I mean, 5 years go by. Nothing has happened. And we start to ask questions. And of course, the pressure among us is like, why haven't you guys had kids yet?
Oh, God.
5 years, a Latino couple that doesn't have kids within the first 2 years of being married is like, what's going on? You know, it's like a rare specimen. And so we decide to go to fertility. We seek treatment. We had to go through testing. And in that process, it was discovered that I had some issues that were preventing me from getting pregnant. So we did all the process the way they said we were going to do it. I ended up getting pregnant with fertility help the first time with 4 babies, 4 embryos. The first time I'm pregnant, we couldn't believe it. We were here looking at 4 kid strollers. We were looking at how we were going to change our whole life for 4 of everything. So that lasted about a month before I started having complications. The first one had a low heartbeat. He passes away, or he or she, I never knew their sexes, passes away pretty early on in the pregnancy. So then I'm left with 3. And then as it turns out, long story short, I start losing one after the other until I lose the last 2. The last 2, and it was a traumatic experience. The last 2 that were remaining, 15 weeks I got to 15 weeks. So they were pretty well developed, well formed. And I go into all in labor. Wow. All in labor, pains, everything. Had to go to the emergency room and deliver my twins at 15 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Most traumatic experience of my life. And I would never want anyone to go through that. Mm-hmm. It was just terrible. Terrible.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
That first 5 years that you mentioned, like around the time where you were trying but not quite sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like how are you doing? How was your marriage doing? How did you go to God with that, or was it?
At that point, we felt really strong in our faith. We were really involved in church, and I always, for the life of my Christian walk, I've been involved in church. So we would take on more stuff, and we would do more stuff for the kingdom, and just stay busy in the church. But at that point, it hadn't really gotten to me because we were so young, and we were like, let's just travel. Let's just do this. And so we would up and go. We'd take weekend getaways wherever we could. And we enjoyed each other. And our thought in that moment, and we've always talked a lot to each other. So we said, we'll enjoy the time before we have kids. And then we know that when they come, we'll just be kind of still. And we're still not still. But, we got a lot of traveling under our belts in that time. So... Okay. We did enjoy each other. We've always enjoyed each other's company. So
okay. And then you mentioned the process of in vitro, right?
I didn't get to in vitro. We did artificial insemination, several rounds, like 3, and then I did injections, which the injections were what got me pregnant. Okay. The insemination did not work for us, and we did several tries of that.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So that. Which you can let me know if you feel comfortable kind of going into that. But that experience you had, kind of going through one loss after another back to back, and then finally delivering 2 babies that you didn't get to keep. Like, what was that emotional, spiritual process like?
That broke me. It changed, I think, forever who I am, and it changed my husband. It was one of the times that I have seen him in our marriage. He's pretty strong, but when he cries like a baby, I couldn't hold it together. I couldn't hold it together. And he's talking to his mom, and he calls his mom. His mom has been a huge support for us our whole life. She's a fantastic woman of God. She is always praying over us, blessing us, and she's just wonderful. I love her. And at that moment, he's in the emergency room, and he calls her, and it was that I couldn't. That broke me forever, and I think it just helped me realize how dependent we are on God, and how we could try so much with our own strength to do things that we think are so easy for some. But at the end of the day, it's not up to me. Mm-hmm. Nothing that goes on, and I have learned this in my life, nothing that goes on in my life is up to me. Mm-hmm. It is totally up to God. And as long as I surrender it to him, then I will walk in whatever blessing he has for me. Mm-hmm. But I have to surrender. I have to be like, I cannot do this on my own. I cannot move this mountain. I cannot make this happen. No matter how normal it is for some people. Some people look at each other and get pregnant. You know what I mean? It's insane. I have some of the most fertile friends.
My sister got pregnant twice on accident. I'm like, how?
On birth control. Literally on birth control. I have met products of couples that are so fertile that she got pregnant on birth control. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how does that happen? I didn't use birth control my whole marriage.
Yeah, I've been thinking about just that. It's kind of left field, but similar to that theme, like just about how little control we actually have, and how almost inherently we have expectations of what things should look like. Like,
so true.
At this age, I should be at this point. My
so
marriage
true.
should look like this.
So true.
Having kids should look like this. Ministry should look like this.
Yes.
And it's just
100%. And I think the external forces that are pressures around us, especially in the Latino community. Good God, if you're not married by 20, you're some sort of nun. I mean, it's insane, the pressure I feel like more in the Latino community, because they're not as understanding as, times are changing, things are different, the environment is different, the dating world is different. There's a lot of people that are happy being just single. And they're okay with that, but this Latino community pressure. Why are you single? Where are you gonna get old? You're not gonna have kids. When are you gonna have kids? It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so that process of grieving.
Yes.
What advice would you, because you said you were 15 weeks at that point?
I was 15 weeks when I delivered the 2 babies in the emergency room, yes.
So what advice would you give someone who might have dealt with that?
You need time. You need to give yourself time. Allow yourself time to heal. And this, for me, involved, I did not go to church for 4 weeks. Like, I wanted my time. I knew people would say things. I knew people, not sometimes the brightest and not sometimes the most timely comments. So I was expecting that already because I knew my audience. So I really did not want to go back for a little bit. I wanted to take a break from my circles, and I wanted to give myself my private time with my husband to heal. He stayed with me. Pretty much, yes, he stayed with me. He didn't know what to do, but he said, at least we're in it together, and I'm here, and we'll get through it together. And that for me at that point was all I could ask for. I couldn't ask for more, but I did a lot of crying. I'm on my bedroom floor. I did a lot of crying. I did a lot of praying.
How did you pray? What did you pray?
That's hard.
I feel like that's the hardest part. Because
they always taught you, don't ever ask God why. And it was the only thing I could do. The only thing I could do. Why did this happen? Why did I get pregnant and then lose them in such a way? It was really hard. But I prayed and I prayed. I always knew that he knew me. He knew my heart. He knew how I was going to come before him. He knew the thoughts that were going through my mind and the doubts. And I think being transparent with God just has to be part of that relationship with him. 100%. You have to be real. When it's not going well, God, this is not working out. When it is going great, you celebrate that with him. But I think he knew I was going to be like, why did this happen to me? But I did learn in all this process that sometimes you're not going to understand why, as long as you know and trust that he is walking it with you. And I was not alone. That was the biggest lesson, I think, in all this that I learned. In how to pray to him. But I did ask why. And I don't think that God gets offended if we ask why, because we're with our little tiny human mind trying to understand this gigantic person who operates outside of our time and space. And he's going to know that we don't understand a lot of things. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. And that's okay. I worked in a neonatal intensive care unit. I would go back to work and I would see, I saw a little girl, 12 years old, who got pregnant with natural twins, and she delivered them in the NICU. And I have never forgotten that story because I had just lost mine. Wow. So it's like, it's hard not to compare your life, but I also learned that my journey is for me to walk.
Yeah. How'd you protect your heart, like with that kind of stuff, like looking around and seeing?
I prayed a lot. I read the word a lot, and I tried to listen to things that would bless me, because I knew that if I allowed that doubt to just take over and that comparison and that why her, not me thing, that would take me to a dark place. And I've always been protective of, I cannot go down that route. And so I have to talk to myself and be like, hold on. Get it together.
Were you always like that?
Huh?
Were you always like that?
I've always talked to myself.
That's good.
I've always talked to myself.
That's a really big discipline.
Yes, I have to, because I know my thoughts, my mind, and it comes with self-awareness. You have to be totally self-aware of what could take you down a dark road. Now, I will tell you, after I lost the second and third pregnancy, I did go down the dark road. And I let myself go down that dark road.
Was that during that process or after?
That was after my second loss. After my second loss. Oh. And doctors want to give me all kinds of antidepressants and all kinds of anti-this and anti-anxiety. I didn't want to take anything. I've never been, I've always been afraid of that. I just, how they kind of teach you and don't do that and don't do this. And so you take those preconceived notions into whatever it is that you're going.
Okay, so really quick, just to clarify, so you had that one pregnancy where you had 4.
Correct. And I got pregnant.
Second and third.
Correct, pregnancies. Second pregnancy was a single baby.
Okay.
It was ectopic. It was implanted on my cervix. When I am in the hospital for a cervical implantation, they had to give me chemotherapy. I was there for a week.
Oh my gosh.
I needed a blood transfusion. I mean, traumatic experiences. And then they told me we might have to take your uterus.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my God.
I mean, how do you even?
Yeah.
So my biggest struggle after that particular incident was not feeling like a woman. Like I couldn't deliver for my husband, and I couldn't deliver for our house, and I couldn't make a baby. I couldn't make it and hold it. And so it just screws you up identity-wise, big time.
I noticed the way that the language changed there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It screws you up identity-wise, big time. I'm not a proper woman. I can't do the things a woman can do. Oh, my God. I went into a spiral of a very bad self-confidence or self-esteem. Self-esteem was really low at that point.
How old were you at that point?
Oh, my gosh. I was like 28. About 28, 27.
Okay. And then what happened with the third?
So after I go through my dark moment, and there our marriage, I felt like was in a little bit of trouble because of how I was feeling. I was shutting him out. I closed off to everything and everyone around me. And I was just really all about in my feelings and in my self-esteem, and I'm no good, and I'm this, and I'm that. Like, I went into that circle. We managed to go through a really rough time, and then we sought help, and we got better. And I felt better. And then after that, in 2009, was the last time that I got pregnant again. We go back to fertility. I get pregnant with twins. 8-9 weeks.
This is a lot. That's a
Girl,
lot.
emotional roller coaster. Oh, the beginning of my whole life as a married person.
Wow.
Emotional roller coaster. So 8-9 weeks, and then I just start bleeding. And it's not till after I lose that third pregnancy that my OBGYN decides to do a test on me to see what's wrong with my cervix. And she finds that my cervix was permanently dilated. So anytime I got pregnant, it was just going to come out because my cervix is not tight, closed like it should be. So she did a surgery on me in, I believe it was mid 2009 or 2010 early. She did a surgery on me where she puts a stitch, and there weren't other doctors in Charlotte doing this particular procedure because it has its risks. But she literally stitched my cervix shut, and she said, if you get pregnant, the only thing is you will never be able to deliver a baby vaginally. You'll have to have a C-section. And so I said, if it's going to allow me to be a mom, just do it. I'm fine with it. So she did it, and then everything changed because 2011 came, and that's where my adopted son comes in the picture, literally sent from heaven. And then everything changes. I don't know if you want to get there yet, but
I'm excited to get there. Okay, more questions about the hard parts really quick. It sounded like you were kind of wrestling with a bit of depression.
Yeah.
So how did you walk out of that or walk through that?
It took a lot of leaning and really talking about difficult subjects with my husband. And I mean, one thing my husband has taught me is what forgiveness looks like, because when he says, I'm going to forgive, he does it just like Jesus does it with us. And so it's just, for me, it's been an example of Christ's love for the church. And I always admire that about him. If he says, I'm going to forgive it and forget, he's not going to go back. And so even though I may have hurt him during that time, he was such an amazing example of forgiveness that it gave me a lot of motivation to just kind of be better for him, because he deserved better. And really, he was a big player in why I came out of that, because I said I can't do this to him. He doesn't deserve that. And it's not, and I see where I'm going. Again, being that self-awareness, reflecting on how I'm treating him, how I was being with him. And he just didn't deserve it. And so he was going out of his way to make me happy and make me feel good and not hurt my feelings. And even in the darkest of moments where we may have been hurt by each other, we never wanted to say things that we couldn't take back. And
that's a really smart point.
I mean, that really has kept us together, because boy, have I been angry at him. Boy, has he been angry at me. But we have never wanted to hurt each other with words. And so we're very careful about how we talk to each other, even in the most angriest moments. Because every couple goes through anger moments, and when they're not happy with that person they're looking at. But if you say the words, you can't ever take them back. And once you say them, they hurt.
Yeah.
They hurt big time. Way worse than anything physical ever.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
And that's something I feel like a lot of people they take for granted, the way that they talk to their significant other.
Seriously.
Especially in this culture, they're very reckless.
It's too much. It's too much. I don't know how couples can live and swearing at each other on a daily basis. I don't know, because you would lie to yourself if you say that doesn't hurt, because it does. That doesn't emulate a love that I want to be involved in.
Yeah, because it's not. I have very high expectations of love.
We have the best example.
Yeah.
We have Jesus. We have Song of Solomon. Come on, that is some high expectation of love right there. And it should be. I feel like I'm so grateful to say this and humbled at the same time. But at my 24th, going on 25th year, I feel like we are the best we have ever been.
That's awesome.
And it's just because, we value each other as parents now, so it's a different role, and we see each other in that role, and we love it. And so it just makes you fall more in love with that person. And then when you're together and you go out on your date nights, it's like, whoo! He will bring down the stars if he has to.
Yeah. Now I'm interested in talking about marriage with you, because that sounds... You guys actually do date night. That's
100%. 100%. Just did one 2 Fridays ago. Literally, he finds a babysitter. He books the restaurant. Most times, sometimes I want a specific place, but he does it all. And then he's just gotten, and he's grown like that. So that's the thing. He didn't start out being a super romantic person, and I used to always tell him, your romantic bone is not really all there. And the other day I told him, wow, it took 24 years. And look at your romanticism. But you gotta stick with it. You gotta stick with it. And sometimes I feel like in this culture, we're too quickly to just throw in the towel. We don't grow with them. We don't let them change with us. We're always in a process of growing. And so we gotta love people through the faults.
I love that.
Yep.
Okay, 2 questions just about that process.
Yes.
What are, if there's multiple, you can say them, but what are some of the key things that friends or family did that supported you best, if any?
So that's hard.
Okay.
My mom was old school. So she acted like the victim of the whole thing was her.
Oh, goodness.
Not me. So that was hard. A lot of people around us didn't really always say the right words. So if I was to give a word of advice, it has to be surround yourself with people that are going to pour into you when you need it. Because I needed the group of friends that I have right now, I needed them then. And I did not have them.
What would you have needed then?
Friends that are gonna pour into me and tell me that that my situation didn't define me, that it didn't take away from my value as a woman, that, you know, it was okay, that what I was going through was okay, that I didn't have some expectation to fill, because I really thought that I wasn't meeting that expectation.
And then you're dealing with all this stuff while continuing on with your life, working, going to church. Yep. I never left the church for like an extended period of time. I was always there. I would just take periodic breaks after the situations happened. To grieve, to have my moment, and then I can build up enough strength to go deal with whatever everybody was going to come tell me. How did you do that? Like, how did you find the strength to deal with what you were dealing with? Like, did you have to compartmentalize, or? I think I did that as a defense mechanism. I think I compartmentalized a lot of things, maybe subconsciously. I've been a strong person my whole life. I've dealt with a lot of stuff since I was little. So, I really don't know, other than just praying and being in the Word, like specific that something happened that helped me. Not that I can recall, other than it was a determined, the talking to myself. You got to go to church. You got to face everybody. Just brush it off. Whatever they say, doesn't matter. Just brush it off. Because I can't even begin to tell you some of the comments that people would say. And so I just had to, you know, I'm not doing it. That could be its own thing. What not to say.
What not to say. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Okay, so that is 4 pregnancies, right?
3 pregnancies, 7 babies.
Okay.
3 pregnancies and 7 babies.
So what led you to consider adoption?
So 2011 rolls around. Carlos and I are at a lunch date. He came to pick me up at the hospital, and I would go have lunch with him. And we were talking, and we said he was tired. He was tired of seeing me hurt and in the hospital and in pain and going through everything I went through. And he said, I don't want to go back to the fertility clinic anymore. And I said, okay. And I said, so are we thinking about adoption? And he said, I think I'm ready for that. I'm ready to look into that. And so our plan was to start in January of 2012, to start the process and the paperwork of adoption.
Really quick, were you agreed with him when you...
Oh, I had always wanted to adopt.
Okay.
Because I was adopted by my grandparents. Oh. So my biological parents did not raise me.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So my paternal grandparents took custody of me when I was about 4. So I was raised by them. So I had always wanted to adopt, because I figured what would be of me if they had not taken me, you know. So that was always in the back of my head, to adopt. But he wasn't ready. He wanted his own, blood child. And when we went through all of this, he finally came to that realization in 2011. And then this was about summer of 2011. And then December of that same year, I was finishing up my bachelor's degree in nursing, so I was full-time in school. See, I would always occupy my mind. If I kept my mind occupied, I didn't have the excess stuff to think about, right?
So that works. That's a really good...
submerged myself in BSN courses for a year and did full-time school, full-time work, church, wife, just submitted myself in that. It was due to be done December of 2011. And I was at work, and my boss... I'm going to really condense the story, but my boss calls me into the office, and she says, do you want to take a baby home? And I was like, what do you mean take a baby home? Because
oh my God,
how does that work? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And she said, well, there's a baby ready to go home who's custody of the state. So the state took the custody from the mom, and the mom has no available, ready, willing, and able kin to take the child. And she specifically requested if there was a nurse that would take the baby home, because she didn't want her child to be in the general foster system. So she had enough, that was all God, but she had enough sound mind that she said, I want a nurse to take the baby. I don't want the baby to go into the regular foster system. Wow. And so that gives my boss the ability to come recruit someone to take this child home. We had never been to a foster class. Most people know the foster parenting system takes about 2 years to become certified as a foster parent. Never done any of that. My husband didn't even know CPR. None of that. Wow. That was on Tuesday, December 6th. They made me go home that day because the social worker was going to be at my house at 4:00 for a home study.
Wow, you remember the date?
Oh, this was huge. This was life-changing. 4:00, she's there with a home study. We had no baby things. We just had an extra room. Wow. But we had no baby things in it. Absolutely nothing. Wednesday, I go to Facebook and I say, friends, family, I need help. I need to equip this house in 24 hours for a baby because I might be bringing a baby home tomorrow. Wow. And I mean, it rained. I had everything from a crib to a stroller to a car seat to everything. And then I had a whole closet full of clothes.
Oh my gosh.
In 24 hours. Ashley, when I say God said it and it's going to happen, this is the moment. And I stuck with it. And I think that's the important thing is I stuck with it. And I feel like I really saw that reward for just hanging in there. And it's so much greater than if I would have dissolved my marriage or I would have left my husband just because I couldn't deal with my own insecurities. I would never have walked into this amazing life that he's given me now because I would have walked away too soon.
Wow. I'm sorry, I feel like I just had to process that. That's really good.
I mean, it's the stick with it. Stick with it. Stick with that covenant. You know, it's sticky and it's muddy. But if you stick with it, I know that there's such a reward in it. Such a reward.
And it's just so powerful for you to say, like, to be on the other end of that and say that knowing exactly what that whole process entailed.
Yes.
Like, probably easier said than done, but you did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful I did. Grateful I did every day. And so that translates into my worship. It translates into everything now that I do because it's that place of, and I actually spoke about this on last Tuesday, just that place of gratitude. Just realizing who he is and what he's done in the grand scheme of everything is just like, man, I'm so grateful. Yeah. So grateful. None of this is my doing. This is all him.
Yeah.
So
I've been, I think I forgot which, I've been doing a lot of writing the last couple days. And I was encouraging, like, because we're at the point now where you haven't necessarily carried your own child yet.
Correct.
But you did start the process of adoption stuff. So, like, praying, like, encouraging people to pray because prayer is powerful and prayer can make a difference. But also just allowing prayer to be a space where God can walk with you through that is such a rewarding thing. Like, just being able to be led is...
You know what my prayer was during that time?
What?
It wasn't very deep. But it was like Anna, right? How she went and people thought she was crazy. I would cry out to God, let someone just leave a baby at my door. I'll take him. Let someone just leave a baby at my door. I just want to be a mom.
Wow.
And
oh my gosh.
I literally prayed like that. And I feel like my son was that baby that was brought to me.
For sure.
And
100%.
I mean,
that's insane.
That if that's not an answered prayer,
yeah,
I don't know what is.
Wow. Okay, so what was that like? All of a sudden, like, because you guys became parents in less...
Literally. So, December 6th, 7th, 8th, they had a baby shower for me at the hospital 2 days later. I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of blessing, but Thursday around noon, we're taking the baby home. Certified foster parents in 24 hours. We're taking the child home. And Carlos said, he had a serious conversation with me. He said, do you think the parents will take him back? And I said, in my faith, At that moment, something just came out of me, and I said, God knows that I've lost too much. He's not going to allow me to take this baby home and lose him too. So I'm not believing that. I'm believing that he will be ours, 100% ours. 30 days later, parents are signing over total paternal rights. The state pays for the adoption. I paid $100 to change his name. Wow. That's it. His whole legal adoption cost me $100.
Wow.
And so he is officially 100% mine, with a new social security, a new identity from what his original birth certificate looked like. And we are the parents on his birth certificate.
Wow.
He was 2 months old. He weighed 8 pounds when we took him home.
So what, was there like something unique about like having to raise him?
He started a little rocky because she used the mom used substances while she was pregnant. So they told us, get him all the developmental screenings. And so all of this was paid for by the state. So whatever I needed to take him to, I took him to.
That's awesome.
Any kind of developmental screening, any kind of, behavioral things, anything.
Okay, so you just had to be like monitored.
I just had to monitor everything and take him so he did a little speech therapy when he was about 4, and he did a little occupational therapy. And the biggest thing they told me was structure and things like that to keep him in a normal function. But he does have ADHD now. We discovered that in 2nd grade. And we do a daily medication for that. But he's great. He's great. He's active. He's wild. He's insane sometimes how much energy he has.
Oh my gosh, my daughter.
I mean,
24/7, morning to evening.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And my blonde hair, blue eyed child who eats tacos and loves tacos de carne asada. And he will try to speak Spanish whenever he can.
Oh, I love that.
And in a totally Latino home.
Okay, so tell me the rest of the story.
All right, so he's ours. 30 days after we find out we're keeping him at 30 days. And then I start feeling bad. Like I start feeling weird physically. And my breasts start to hurt. And I started having all these weird symptoms. So I'm like, me and Carlos just look each other. We had such a connection on communication that we would just look at each other and we knew what we were thinking.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'm going to do a pregnancy test. And sure enough, I was pregnant a month and a half after I took Eli home. Naturally pregnant, which I had not been naturally pregnant my whole 14 years of marriage before that. So naturally pregnant, naturally freaked out because I was scared, but this was after I had that surgery too. So I was like, no, we're okay. We're going to be good. Literally start walking in that, and there comes my daughter. A year later, on the same birthday that my adopted son has, he's turning 1. We're celebrating in the hospital that my baby girl had just been born.
Wow.
They have the same birthday, a year apart.
That's so cool.
I mean, God's got jokes, let me tell you. A year and a half later, I find out I'm pregnant with the 3rd one, and his due date was their birthday.
Wow, that's crazy.
The 3rd one.
That's really crazy.
What are the chances?
I'm curious about their birthdays.
October 4.
Okay.
October 4. So that was Eli's original birthday. And then it comes a year later. Estella's born, so they're exactly 1 year apart on October 4. And then Carlos comes, and the only reason he wasn't born on October 4 was because that was a weekend. And my surgeon, my OB, was there on the Monday before. So 5 days before, he comes on September 29th. So all my birthdays for the year are in that 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole party at your house.
That's insane. It's a weekend of parties. This year, they all want individual birthday parties. So I am planning currently, actively, 3 different parties.
Wow.
For the children.
I mean, as a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. But my sister and I were like 2 days apart. On the 12th, she's the 14th. I get it.
Yeah.
They're old enough to care about that now.
They are.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. What is the biggest, or what's the best encouragement you can give to two kinds of women? One who doesn't get to realize like that dream of having her own baby, and one who's like maybe holding on to a promise or something that God said.
Yes. So the first one, I felt that way after losing the third pregnancy. I felt like it just wasn't in the cards for me, and that we're gonna have to be okay with not having kids. I came to that thought process. I processed that specifically, and I went to God and said, you know what, God, if you don't give me kids, I'm still gonna love you. When I made that, I feel like that was a turning point for me. When I made that acceptance, I just said, God, I love you more than having kids. Mm-hmm. And if you can put God in that place in your life, I know he will take care of whatever he needs to take care of for the rest. Because that was huge for me. It was saying, God, I will love you with or without kids. I'll love you because I love you more than anything else on this earth. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be without you. So if it was about having kids and not having you, I'd rather have you. Mm-hmm. Because I got through everything I got through because of him. Mm-hmm. So I would never want to leave him. So that was my big realization. And I would tell whoever is just not in the cards, you know, whatever the case may be, that you put God in that place, that you love him so much that he becomes the one to fill the void of you not having a child, or the void of even you being, you know, single at an advanced stage and it just never planned out for you. And if that wasn't the case, that the door would just open for it to be maybe an adoption. Maybe you were called to be a blessing to someone who needs you, you know. I would have never thought that it was going to be such a blessing to bring Eli into our life. And then, holy moly, the floodgates of heaven were open when we decided to be a blessing for him. And so that was just life-changing, life-altering. But that's what I would say. Love God more than that.
I'm going to build on that. So love God more. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you can't say that, ask for help. Lord, help me love you more.
Yes.
And then another thing you mentioned is maybe consider other options.
Yes. Consider other options for sure.
And then, so what about the person who's like holding on to something God said? Like me, that's always like the very tender, delicate part of this conversation is when God says something multiple times in different ways.
That happened to me. So I'm gonna be transparent about my feelings in that moment. So you're in church, you're growing up in church, especially if it's a charismatic type church. You're gonna, I had a dream that you had, you know, all these kids. Oh, sister, you're gonna have a baby. I felt it. The Lord told me, and oh my God, word after word, promise after promise, dream after dream. Okay, I endured that for 14 years. At the point that the last 2-3 Mother's Days that were before Eli came, I just left. I would leave. I didn't want anyone to tell me anything anymore. I became very indifferent to what people had to say, whether it was the Lord or not, who sent them to say it. I will be honest, I got to the point where I didn't care what they had to say. That's it's tough. It's real though. It's how you feel. You're like, I don't want another person. And I told Carlos one day, I said, babe, I don't want another person to come tell me that I'm going to have a child because I think I'm just going to be nasty. Like I'm just going to be downright old Toni and just be nasty. Like just save your comment. I don't really want to hear anymore. Thank you. Because it got to that point. I was like, Lord, everybody just tripping, you know? Tripping? I mean, God, they don't know how it makes me feel, me as the person going through it. But the biggest thing I said was...
Sorry, really quick. That
yes.
reminds me of that story of, I forgot, the Shunammite woman that's like, don't get my hopes up. Was it kind of like that? Don't
Yes.
get my hopes up.
It was exactly that. It was, I'm supposed to believe that I have this promise, but look how long it's been and it hasn't happened. So I'm coming to the realization that I'm okay with it. I don't need you to tell me about your dream. Thank you very much. Keep your dream to yourself. At that point, it's just like, don't need it. Thank you. My prayers at that moment was, Lord, I don't want any other voices but yours. I don't want to hear anybody else. I don't care what anyone else says. I don't care if it's prophet so-and-so from Africa. I don't care. I want you to talk to me. And that was when I really started getting into the word a lot. And I went to theological seminary and I started studying the word and I fell in love with it. And that's where I feel like I started hearing God's voice through the Psalms, through, Proverbs, through all those things that speak to everyday life. And I felt like he was talking to me through those stories. And I got into Anna and I got into Elizabeth and I got into the women in the Bible and I started studying. And I was just like, this is, I just have to trust him. Trust him and put him first and follow whatever he tells me. Because I had gotten prophesied over a girl 1,000 times.
Yeah, no, but that's really big because, you said a couple things. But being able to separate, like, the word and the promise, like the thing that you really want, that he says you'll have, but also finding some level of reassurance in his character and knowing who he is. You said that was a big thing.
That was a big thing. Yeah.
Do you feel like kind of diving into scripture helped you balance, or did you feel like you had to let the promise go completely? Like, was this like a Abraham, Isaac type situation?
Yeah, no, I feel like I never let the promise go completely. It was always there, and I knew that he had spoken that over me, and I would always, bring that to remembrance. Like Lamentation says that you have to, remember who he was. You have to bring it to the forefront of your memory. And so bringing that word, that promise to the forefront, and I would always bring it, and I would always, reference the women I had studied about and in my prayers. And I was, Lord, like Anna, you found favor in her, and I want you to find that favor in me. And I would pray those types of things. But if you
scripture.
Yes.
That is really good.
Yes, I would bring scripture into prayer, 100%.
Okay,
yeah,
that's really good.
And I'm actually teaching my kids to do that. So I make my kids weekly. They have a chapter in the Bible that Carlos assigns to them. They have to write it down, and they have to read it every day to us. And now when we put them to pray, they use the scripture that they have learned in their prayers.
I love that.
So they're starting already, 1, to develop a love for the word, and then 2, to understand that word has power in prayer.
And it gives you language.
It gives them language. So you should hear. I have videos of Eli preaching and all kinds of stuff. So
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it. I think that's everything. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Toni, thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
If you guys have any questions for her in particular, you can send me a message through Instagram or Facebook. Let me know. I'll forward them over to her, put them in the description.
For sure.
And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for listening. Feel free to DM me to send me your feedback. Check out the description below to follow me on social media. This podcast is listener supported. Don't forget to subscribe. Remember, you are fully known and deeply loved. I'll see you in the next one.